Welcome to Dark Facade, a channel dedicated to looking past the veneer of humanity and finding its true face. I will be your tour guide down this winding path of tales, ranging from the supernatural, science fiction, and twisted love. All the stories you're about to hear are assorted bits of literature that will range from the bizarre to the unexpected. So sit back, lower the lights, and allow yourself to be taken away from everyday reality to its shadowy reflection. If you enjoy our unusual content, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to receive more. Thank you. The Book of Dark Names by Katie Rogers, read by Katie Rogers. Chapter 1. Laura Blaine drove in silence under a cloudless sky as she headed towards the Moran family's seaside mansion. The patriarch, George Moran, was the great-grandson of Joseph Moran, the founder of the family's hotel chain. When he married Kaylee Harris, the arrangement seemed only natural. After all, her family owned a publishing empire that matched the Moran fortune nearly dollar for dollar. Their wedding was nothing less than a royal affair with only the top 1% in attendance. Everyone who witnessed the event called it a perfect merger. The point of Laura's visit, however, had nothing to do with money. George and Kaylee's notorious party girl daughter was missing. Cody Moran had become the spoiled poster girl people loved to hate. She had tried her hand at acting, singing, and of course modeling, but they grew dull after a while, and she simply returned to her idle existence. The papers were filled with her outrageous antics up until 3 weeks ago, when she seemed to have disappeared off the planet. There were, of course, speculations that this was just a publicity stunt, but if it was, she was pulling it off nicely. No one among her friends or family were saying much in regards to where she might be. The truth was, none of them knew, and it was starting to scare those who walked among the elite. If Cody had met with foul play, any one of them could be next. The police placed the last sighting of her in her own bedroom at the seaside manor that Laura was headed towards. When the front gates came into view, she took a deep breath, then pulled up to a speaker and pressed the button. A man's voice answered. "May I help you?" he asked. "I'm Laura Blaine from the Blaine Detective Agency. I have an appointment with Mrs. Moran," she replied. After the guard received confirmation, the gates quickly opened, revealing a long, windy drive that led up to the front door. Once inside, she was greeted by an older lady in a maid's uniform and another middle-aged woman in a red suit. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, giving her a very stern appearance. "Ms. Blaine, I'm Leslie Bauer, Mrs. Moran's assistant. Please follow me," she instructed as she turned to lead the way down a white marbled hallway. Their footsteps echoed across the pristine corridor until they stopped to enter a large, ornate sitting room. The place was filled with blue and white furnishings and surrounded by windows. The bright California sun illuminated the entire room with warmth. Laura's new employer was seated near one of the windows, staring down at the crashing waves below. Leslie approached her solitary figure and spoke softly. "Madam, she is here," she said. "Thank you, Leslie. You may leave us now," was the reply she received. The woman all but bowed before leaving the room. "Ms. Blaine, please come sit," her hostess beckoned. Laura walked stiffly to her seat, feeling a little bit like she was in the principal's office. Kaylee Moran was a typical billionaire's wife in appearance. Her blonde locks were cut into a sophisticated bob that framed her seemingly ageless face. The rare glances the public got of her in the papers did not capture the lady in front of Laura today. The confidence, that she had heard from her a moment ago did not reflect in the look she had on her face. In place of the towering iron woman the media had dubbed her was a mother whose child had been missing 21 days. Her usual creaseless brow was filled with lines, and her strong blue eyes were red and puffy from lack of sleep. The normal tailored suits she wore had been replaced by a more casual attire. She looked disheveled, and understandably so. "I don't believe I need to explain why you are here, do I, Miss Blaine?" she asked. "Not at all, ma'am. It's very clear to me," Laura answered. "Very good. Your success at finding missing persons is outstanding. I hope your perfect record continues with my daughter," she replied. "As do I," Laura nodded. "Every bit of information obtained by the authorities has been collected and placed in an office space for your use. My staff has been instructed to assist you in any way they can. If you need anything else, just ask Leslie." "Thank you," Laura said, taking her cue to leave. Just before she reached the door, her employer's voice pulled her back. "Miss Blaine." She turned to see her silhouetted against the light. "Please find my daughter." The two women stood quietly, allowing the vulnerability of the moment to pass between them. "I will, Kaylee. Don't worry," she promised before leaving the room. What people did not know about Laura's success rate was that she possessed a skill most others did not. She had an extrasensory ability that enabled her to find whatever she was looking for. At first, it started out small, with her locating car keys, household items, and lost pets when she was a child. She was nicknamed the Bloodhound by the people in her hometown. The girl's uncanny ability to seek and find always amazed people, but they never gave it a second thought. She was one of the gifted who did not have to hide her talents. Everyone appreciated what she could do. It was the mind readers and the ghost talkers that seemed to rattle cages. When Leslie met back up with her in the hallway, she led her down to the office space Mrs. Moran had talked about. All the police reports and any other information pertaining to Cody's disappearance were stacked neatly on the desk in piles. "Is everything satisfactory, Miss Blaine?" Leslie asked. "Yes, but I'd like one more thing," she told her. "And that is, can you please take me to Cody's room? Since that was the last place she was seen, I would like to have a look around." Leslie nodded and led her to another wing of the house. They continued on down a brightly lit hallway until they paused at a set of huge double doors. Without another word, Leslie simply tipped her chin and left. Laura slowly pushed one of the doors open and went inside. After she shut it behind her, she began to scan the room for vibrations that might be helpful. These unseen small disturbances within the forces of life and nature were what made hers and most of the other psychics she knew abilities work. They were leading her over to the young woman's wardrobe. It was a grand thing, nearly equal in size to her bedroom. There were 2 stories to it. The upper level was dedicated to clothing, while the lower was dedicated to shoes and accessories. The decadence of it all might have given her pause if she wasn't being drawn to the top layer of the place. She climbed the champagne-carpeted stairs to the upper level, where she saw a full-length gilded mirror in the center. She stopped short when she came face to face with her own reflection. The vibrations were strong here, but it made no sense. Whenever she felt them this intensely, it meant she located what she was looking for. Laura stared up at the golden frame when she noticed that it was made up of the narcissus flower. She couldn't shake the feeling she had seen this mirror somewhere before. The perfect silver finish of the glass was like a clear lake that shimmered in the light. When Laura leaned in to touch it, she was stopped by a loud thud. She stumbled backwards, startled by the noise and the sudden movement from the mirror. When she peered back into the glass, it all became clear. Her own image was replaced by that of the missing heiress. Cody Moran stared back at her in desperation. She began to pound against the glass, causing the mirror to rattle violently on the wall. Laura stood in stunned silence for a moment as she began to put things together. She realized where she had seen this mirror before. This was the infamous mirror of Narcissus. The legend said it would take those who suffered from extreme vanity prisoner. Cody Moran was its latest and most perfect victim. Though Laura was not certain how to combat the thing, she was certain that if the girl continued to pound the way she was, she risked breaking the mirror and possibly trapping herself forever. She decided to try and calm the frightened heiress by talking to her. "Listen to me, Cody. I'm going to help you, but you have to stop beating on the glass, okay? You have to calm down." As it happens with most of the young and privileged, her warning fell on deaf ears. In a last-ditch effort, she told Cody she would return, then stepped away from the looking glass. The pounding continued on until she found a nearby long red cloak which she draped over the front. The mirror vibrated only a moment more before it stopped. Laura breathed a sigh of relief before slumping to the floor. The mystery of where the girl had gone was solved, but how to get her back, that was beyond her skill. There was also the dilemma of whether or not she should tell her mother. Laura was pretty sure that Mrs. Moran would not believe any of it. To be honest, she wouldn't have believed it either if she hadn't seen it for herself. As she contemplated the options, the answer to her conundrum was given by Kaylee Moran herself. "Well done, Miss Blaine. The rumors about you are delightfully true," she said from the stairwell. "You knew where your daughter was this whole time?" she asked in astonishment. "Of course I did. Imagine my shock when I came in here and discovered no earthly being was holding my child prisoner." "Then why call me?" Laura asked. "I tried using other people who were supposedly gifted like you, but they turned out to be frauds. They didn't know anything. Not one of them even came in to the wardrobe, let alone the mirror," she laughed bitterly. "I'm sorry to be a further disappointment to you, Mrs. Moran. My gift only allows me to find lost items or people. I don't have the first clue how to bring your daughter back," Laura told her. "No, you may not, but you might have some idea as to who can," she replied. Laura nodded as the meaning of this exercise became clear. Mrs. Moran was taking a gamble when she flew her here from Chicago. She was testing Laura, and she had passed. Now that she had done so, Kaylee Moran had found new hope. Since Laura had proven herself to be legit, perhaps she could lead Mrs. Moran to another that could help. This time the lady's gamble would pay off. "It just so happens, madam, I do," Laura smiled.